Hey, we're in week 5 of our series here on anxiousness. Man, I sure have hope that the last 4 weeks have helped you out some way, form, or fashion. Helps you think through during the week whenever you're kind of going through a hard time, maybe have one of them stressed out moments, one of them anxious moments, that you're remembering these times. And so today, we're going to try our best. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but we're going to try our best to answer the question, God, why don't you just take this away from me? If you're sovereign, if you're God, then why don't you just take this away from me? And so, what do you think?
Yeah, I think anybody that's been in these groups and has struggled with anxiety, like whether it's been, like this is week 5, so whether you've been struggling with it for 4 weeks, 4 months, 4 years, 4 decades.
Which I think everybody struggled with it a lot.
I think everybody's asked that question before of why doesn't God just take it away? Like it seems like it would be easier for God just to not let me continue to struggle and continue to fight and just kind of get rid of all these different things. And so we've kind of dove into a couple of different verses kind of throughout, and we kind of keep going back to these same couple of verses. And it's Philippians 4:6, where he says, don't be anxious about anything, but pray about everything, and with supplication and thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, and really it says the person of God who is peace, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds. And then he says, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. And I think really more than anything is the way that we can think about anxiety is that God is our Father. And at the end of the day, that's really what everything about the Christian life comes down to is God is our Father. And so I don't know if you remember like growing up. Did you ever have kids that you were friends with growing up and their parents just like let them have anything and do anything?
I thought you was going to ask me, did I ever have kids when I was a kid? Like, that'd have been weird. No. But yes, and it was really, really weird. Like, you thought like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have their life.
Yeah.
Like, how do they get to do everything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like you had the friends that like they were always drinking Coke and eating candy. Like that's all I wanted as a kid.
Yeah, I only did that at my grandmother's house when my parents wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I'd get sick as a dog because she had candy everywhere. Most of it was really old. We had chewy paper mints. You chew it out. Hey, it's supposed to be hard, but it was chewy.
Yeah. And so you want Coke, you want candy, you want to watch cartoons, and like you just want all these different things. And it's amazing how as a kid you kind of define good parents as
they just let them do anything they want to.
Yeah, they get whatever they want. And so like I love all the time like you'll meet like a 7-year-old and they'll be like, I have the worst dad. I hate my dad. I don't want to live there anymore. Like I want to move out because he doesn't give me candy, you know. And like that's like the defining characteristic. And then as you get older, when you're 30 or 35, whatever age you are, you start to realize that the best parents are really the ones that didn't give the kids what they wanted right there in that moment, that they had a bigger perspective than just that one single moment.
Oh, yeah.
Because in that moment, you get what you want, so you feel like your dad's the best because of that single second right there.
You're teaching your kids better when you don't give them everything they want, and honestly, you make them do things they don't want to do.
Yeah.
Because the greatest things that happen in our life, honestly, as bad as it sounds, usually come from pain if you respond correctly.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like, do you want Coke and candy and cartoons, or do you want chores and a curfew and what else starts with a C? The good parents give.
Are we going Baptist alliteration? Okay.
I was trying to. And so you have all these different things. And so the Bible, it talks about this a lot. It says that life is like a vapor. It's just a breath and then it's gone. And so our life, it really is brief. And the God that we worship, he is eternal. Like he has no beginning, he has no end. And so when we look at our life, it feels so long and it feels like it's just such this huge thing. But in the perspective of eternity, it's really not a big deal. And so if you think about it, if you were to think about your life, and let's just say you live 100 years, and so you live to be 100 years old.
That'd be really saggy.
If you picked out one specific second, just 1 second out of that whole 100 years, it would not give you a very good perspective of what your life was like. Yep. Just 1 second out of all that. And so our 100 years, or however long we live on this earth, or one season that we're in right now where we're struggling with this and we're going through this thing, and it doesn't really give us a perspective on eternity because it's such a small snippet of what that really is. And so I think about, if we think about 100 years as a second, our life as a second, somebody that's lived 22 years, and they just decided, hey, you know what, like I'm 22 years old, God hadn't been good to me, so I don't believe him anymore.
Yeah.
And so if God was really real, then this wouldn't happen in my life. So I don't need that crutch in my life anymore. I don't need.
By the way, happens a lot.
And so if you're 22 years old, you think, like, I remember being 22. I legitimately thought I knew everything when I was 22 years old.
I was an idiot.
And so I remember, like, at that age, you think that you know everything. You think you've experienced everything. But really, it's just 1/4 of a second of 100 years. And you think that you've figured out this eternal God in the short little life that you've had here on these earth.
Which, by the way, God is eternal. He's been around forever.
Yeah.
How you going to figure him out in 22? That's like a second. Like a split second.
Yeah. And so it's kind of in the middle of all these things is that there are incredibly difficult seasons. And probably everybody watching this video, you've gone through some stuff that is hard and it's difficult and it doesn't make sense. And you wish that God would just take you out of it, out of the middle of the situation that you're in. And I wish I could tell you why. I wish I could tell you, hey, this is why all these things are happening. But at the end of the day,
go ahead.
At the end of the day, all that I really know is that God is good, and you can trust Him. But there is a mystery to this thing of we live into a fallen world, and bad things happen, and we can't always make sense of it. And
that's my funeral message. I mean, when I preach at funerals, it's amazing how many people, as a pastor, I hear ask me the question, why does God allow bad things happen to good people? Which there's a lot more deep theology there we ain't gonna get into. But the big picture is the Bible's very plain. And Jesus even taught it. Like bad things happened to Jesus. He lost best friends. He saw sick people. He was hurt in a lot of different ways. People came against him. People talked bad about him, spoke behind his back, to his face. I mean, everything. But he told us, like, in this world will be many, not a few, many trials and tribulations. He says, but take heart, for I've overcome the world. And I really believe what that means is, hey, take heart, I've overcome the world. In other words, I've gone through everything and experienced everything that you're going through. I know exactly what you're dealing with. And bad things will happen. So instead of running from me, which is what the devil wants you to do, he's going to lie to you and tell you how bad God is. And so if he can get you to think God's bad, he's going to get you to run, and then you're going to become bitter. You're going to become hard. You're not going to be an easy person to be around because honestly, Jesus is hope. And so the enemy's going to tell you to run from God, but God's just begging you, whispering, screaming, however you want to look at it, telling you, hey, just come to me. Come to me during this time. Crawl up underneath my chest. Let me hold you during this time. And if you'll let me hold you, even though it's bad, there can be, it may never get fixed the way you want it to, but there are a lot of good things that can come from this.
And I think that a lot of times we want the Bible to make promises that it never makes. I think that we want to read things into it, and we want to read and we want to believe, man, if I just trust God, if I just pray enough, He'll take care of it. He'll fix it. And really, He never, in both of these passages, and so you think about like Paul and Peter, like the people who were just like at the forefront of the Bible, like they wrote the majority of it, and they're just in the midst of all of the New Testament. The two guys who wrote the most, and when they talk about anxiety the most, never once did they promise that God will fix it for you. He'll take care of it for you. You won't struggle. The only thing that they promised was that, hey, in the middle of it, God's going to be there with you.
That don't seem fair, does it?
It doesn't. I wish that they just said, hey, if you'll pray about it, God will take it away. But
take it all away.
But that promise isn't there. And what it really comes down to is our definition of God fixing it and God caring for us is really, a lot of times it looks like comfortability.
Yeah.
And anything that I don't like, anything that stretches me, anything that's hard, anything that's difficult, if I pray about it, God will take it away. But really, He just promises us Himself. And I think it shows what we value the most. And so when we look at God as the Father, is that God's looking at this whole thing and He's saying, you know what, I'm not going to fix this for you, but I am going to be with you in the middle of it, because at the end of the day, what God values the most is a relationship with us. And just like the Father who knows enough not to give you the Coke and the candy and the cartoons. You like that?
Yeah, I like that. Coke, candy, cartoons, and character. It's all see.
Yeah, and so God loves you enough to give you Himself in the middle of it.
Yeah. And
I think a lot of times that when we think that if he just fixed it, that it would make everything better. And so we're saying things like, God, I need you to fix this. I need you to take care of this. And all God's saying is, well, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here, like in the middle of it, like I'm here. And you're like, man, well, God, I need you to fix this. Like, how am I going to pay my taxes?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I still can't pay my taxes.
Yeah.
And it's not like in that moment, what's most important to us and what we value the most is paying our taxes.
Yeah.
But in every moment and in every season, in every circumstances, what God cares about is you.
Yeah.
In relationship, in eternity. And those are the things that God values. And so I think that we have this idea that if God would just fix things, that would bring peace.
Yeah.
That if God would just fix it, he would bring peace. If God just healed this one situation, that there would be peace. And so whatever the situation that we end up in the most, and honestly, like when I think about the most difficult seasons in my life, I think about honestly the first year that we were in Arab.
Yeah.
And so the first year that we were in Arab, literally the week before we launched our Arab campus, we were expecting twins, and we lost both of our twins like a week before we launched our campus, which kind of sparked us on this journey of 2 years of, I think, like 7 total miscarriages and just doctor visit after doctor visit, infertility that just seemed like an endless thing. And so in the midst of that 2 years, it felt like eternity. And I just kept thinking, like, God, if you will just take us out of this moment, like if you'll just rescue us from this season, then we'd have peace. And in the midst of it, that seemed like the biggest thing, that if God would just give us a baby, that it would fix everything. And in reality, that what seemed like forever was such a short period of time, because that was 2 years ago now, and those 2 years have opened the door for more opportunity to help people through the same struggle as that I'll be using for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And in the midst of it, I didn't want to hear it. Like when I was in the midst of it, if you'd have told me all the people I was going to be able to help, I'd be like, I don't care. Like I don't care about them. Like I care about me.
I want my babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like in the midst of it, it doesn't make sense. But when you think about it, if we get 100 years here on earth, I'm 30 years old. So for the next 70 years, I get to walk with people that are going through that same thing.
Yeah.
That one season that felt like forever is really short if it means that I can help hundreds of other people. And it taught me how to trust Jesus, that even when things don't seem good, that he's good.
Well, 2 Corinthians chapter 1 tells us, I think it starts in verse 3 to about 10. It talks about how God has comforted us during our hard times so that we can comfort other people. And I know that in the moment, whenever you're dealing with something that is bigger than you, something that's horrific, I think everybody will go through something horrific. That in the moment, it doesn't feel like God's there, and you really want God to do something about it, take the pain away. And I don't know if the pain will never go away in some situations. Some situations will, but a lot of situations it won't. But if you can turn that pain and not waste it, it's kind of like goes back to Adam's book.
Yeah.
Pain Not Wasted. You need to read it.
Yeah.
If you could take that pain and not waste it and say, okay, God, I'm going to put my trust in you. I don't completely understand this. This is a mystery to me. But God, I want you to use me to help other people who's going through this. It's amazing, even though you'll still have some pain because of what's happened in your life, God will begin to bring and produce satisfaction because you begin to help other people. You begin to really walk with other people to where you're several feet in front of them. I mean, miles in front of them. And you used to be where they are. You know exactly what they're going through. You know exactly the way they feel. And so you know how to talk to them where I wouldn't know how to talk to them. For instance, so me and Leah's never lost a baby before. And so if somebody comes to me and wants my advice on what to do when somebody, has lost a child or something, I can't give them the right words. I can look at them and say, I'll pray for you. Hey, Jesus loves you. Hey, I'll pray that God gives you a peace that surpasses all understanding, but I really don't know what to say. To where I can look at them and say, hey, let me get you connected with Jake and Melanie. They've gone through the exact same thing. They know exactly how you feel. Can I connect you with them? And listen, they will be, because they've experienced it, gone through it, can be a whole lot more comforting to them because they know exactly what it's like, and they're on the other side of it. And there's some of you that's right in the middle of something right now, and you're like, how in the world could God bring anything good out of this? Once again, I'm not saying that it's going to take any pain away, but there is a place where there'll be other people going through the same pain one day, and you're way ahead of them to where God can use you in a large way in their lives. And you'll realize, like, even though this is bad, I can still use it for good.
And in the midst of that, really what God did through all of that is he taught me how to love people in a deeper
really
way.
love people.
Yeah, and I thought I knew, but honestly going through that sort of pain and understanding what people are really going through teaches you to love people in a whole new way. And so there's a story in the Gospels where Jesus comes up on these 10 lepers, and these 10 lepers, like, honestly, like they had this terrible disease, this awful disease that they were going through. And so they come to Jesus, and he asks them, he says, do you want to be healed? And they're like, of course we want to be healed. And so God heals all 10 of these lepers. And he says, I want you to go to the temple. I want you to show them that you've been healed. And so they go, and they have to go to the temple because they're outcasts. And so it wasn't just the sickness and the disease, but they didn't have friendships. They couldn't be with their family. There's all these things that they're going through. And Jesus heals them of all of it instantaneously. And so these 10 guys, they get exactly what most of us are asking for, is that Jesus literally just rescued them out of this season, rescued them out of this pain, out of this thing that they're going through, and pulls them out of it. And out of those 10 guys, one person, 10%, one guy comes back out of all 10 guys and comes back to Jesus and says, thank you. And Jesus, in the midst of it, he says, you know what, even the guy that came back, he's not Jewish, he's a Gentile. He's a Samaritan, and he came. And I think that there's just this idea of, if God would just give me what I wanted, if God would just rescue me, if God would just save me, heal me, pull me out of this, if I just didn't struggle with anxiety anymore, then I'd have peace.
Yeah.
In reality, the only person out of the 10 that was fully healed was the one, because what they found is they found Jesus in the midst of it.
Yes.
And so just getting what you want doesn't mean that you're going to get the peace, because honestly, peace comes from Jesus. It doesn't come from your circumstances.
No, not at all. 100%.
And whatever the circumstance is that's causing anxiety and causing fear and causing doubt and causing pain, there's going to be another circumstance on the other side of it. And Jesus is the one who brings peace regardless of circumstance. That's really what it is.
I've had people tell me, I've heard this more than once, that in their most horrific times of their life, I had a lady, I'll just give you an illustration. There's a guy named Andrew Cantelmo that used to be at the church I was at before. He was from the north, and man, he was a straight up Yankee. I mean, he was obnoxious. He'd tell you exactly the way he felt. I mean, he'd tell you what he thought about you. And but everybody loved the guy. He was hilarious. He could cook. He was a chef. He could cook, and man, he made the best pies. We called them Cantelmo pies. And he worked in our student ministry, and then we found out that he had hepatitis B.
Oh.
And he got really, really sick. And man, we prayed over that dude to be healed. And Jackie was his wife. And, I learned a lot during that time with just them two, just telling me how we don't realize how petty we are in life with things. That whenever you come to an illness that's terminal, because it became terminal, that you start realizing, man, we're so petty in life. They never fought again, and they spent more time together, and they enjoyed each other's more company. But I remember when he passed away, and I remember Jackie telling me, I'll never forget it, blew my mind. She says, Andy, I can't explain it. I don't know, but that Philippians 4 passage came alive, that peace that surpasses all understanding. She goes, I was in this bubble with God during this time. It's the worst time of my life. I lost my husband. She said, but I felt his presence stronger than I've ever felt him in my entire life. And I was wrapped up with him. And she said, as crazy as it sounds, she said, as horrific as that time was that I was walking with those times and watching him get ill and having to take care of him. And she said, I'll be honest with you, Andy, I miss those moments with God.
Wow.
That was the worst times of my life, but that was the strongest God's presence was in my life. And as bad as that time was, there's times I wish I could still go back into that time because God's presence was so strong. I miss those moments. And there's something about it when you can place your faith and just trust God, even though it's hectic around you. There's something that God does in that, and I don't completely understand it.
Yeah.
And there's a place where we're not trying to. There's probably a lot of people are hating what we're saying because of what you're dealing with and what you're going through, and thinking you just don't know what my deal is. You just don't know what I'm dealing with, what I'm going through. And you're right. We have no clue, and we're not trying to make light of anybody's situation. Nobody is watching this. We're not trying to make light of your situation. But I know that pain is deep, and God wants to sit with you through the pain. And we got to be mad at somebody. And who's the easiest to be mad at? No, it's funny. We don't even get mad at the devil. We get mad at the one that loves us the most, which is God. We get mad at Him, which is understandable. I mean, like, He's sovereign. Like, God, you've healed people before. Like, why didn't you do this? And I can't answer. I wish I could answer that question for you. I don't know, but I do know He's still good. And I do know He wants to sit with you, and He wants to wrap you up. And you know what? He's even got His big boy britches on. He can take you mad at Him. I wouldn't stay there long because it can get you into a bitter place. And, you know, I think it's fair to beat on the chest of God and ask Him why. But you need to remember, after you beat on the chest of God for so long and you get tired, you just need to lay there and let Him hold you for a little while in His chest. Same chest. You use it for two different things. You can beat on it for a while. He's a big boy. He can take it. And then you can lay there and let Him hold you for a little while. And I know it's easier for us to say this kind of stuff than it is for you guys to actually hear, considering what you're going through. But I do know He loves you. I know He's for you. And you do not listen to the lies of the enemy. That's one thing that the enemy does. He lies to us like crazy.
He does. And I think another thing too, I had friends that just last week, they've been going through probably the worst tragedy that I can imagine. Like I can't even put myself in their shoes. And I remember them telling me last week, they said, I never knew how loved I was until I went through this. We've had so many people love us and feed us and take care of us. And so they turned around last week and they took money that they didn't have and they gave it to somebody else who was going through tragedy. Because they said, like, the only thing that I can do is try to pay forward what people have done for me. Yes. And you say it all the time, is that we're wired to never be more fulfilled than when we give our lives away. Yeah. And doctors support that now. Like, doctors are saying...
Well, I'm glad the doctors finally listened to Andy Heiss in Coleman, Alabama. Good job, doctors.
Yeah, and so doctors are saying now that the best cure for anxiety is to go serve somebody else.
100%. Because this is just I don't know what the doctors say. Go ahead and finish that. What did the doctors say?
That was it. I was done.
Okay, that was weird. Doctors, let me tell you why. Because we can get so caught up with our problems. We can get so caught up. And by the way, I'm guilty of this too. So I'm not making a lot of anybody saying that I've got this together. Nobody else does. But we can get so caught up in our issues, our taxes, our bills, our kids, my marriage. I have no friends, look at social media too much and see that everybody's got better lives than we do. Whatever. I don't know. But we get so caught up that it starts controlling us in a large way. And so what happens is when you start going and serving other people, it takes your mind off of your problems in that moment, and you start helping somebody in their problems, and you forget about yours, and you put the focus on somebody else's. And what you'll realize is there's a lot more people out there that got worse problems than I do, worse issues.
Yeah, and that's what Jesus said in John 14:27. He says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you." And then he says, "Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." And I think that that's where we find that peace that Jesus gives, is when we serve somebody else, when we give our lives away. We take the love that's been given to us, the love that we receive, we give it to other people. And like you've been saying forever, like that's where you find life. That's where you find peace. And that's what we need. That's what the world needs. I think that's how we start to really kind of chip away at this anxiety and this fear that overwhelms us, is by just serving somebody else, giving our lives away. And all of us kind of wrap it up in carrying each other's burdens and loving one another the way that my friends are doing.
Well, that's why we talk about community all the time. That's why I'm so excited that you're 5 weeks in and you're still here. Because it goes back to, honestly, you isolate yourself in your house with the shades pulled down in the dark, you're going to walk in some serious, strong depression. The devil's going to, you're going to be perfectly set up for the enemy to come in and take control. That's why you need to pull the shades up, let the sun shine in, get your tail out of the house, go for a walk, go for a run, go to the movies, go to a community group. That'd be bigger than anything. Get around another friend. Let somebody know. But you stay isolated, you're going to get in these pity parties that's going to take you down roads that leads to really bad things. That's why I think it's so important to have community groups. That's why we do that at our church. one of our main visions. Get around other people. You need community. It's a big deal.
Yeah. And that's why we're talking about that in here is that you're surrounded by people who can walk with you, love you, serve you, pray for you, encourage you. And so that's why it's so important that you open up to each other, you be transparent, let people in, because that's really the only way that we can beat this thing.
Yep. Hey, listen, we love you. We'll see you next week. Last week. Can't wait. Hope this is helping you. Have a phenomenal day. Go enjoy yourself. Talk about it. See ya.